It is Matt Heaton here, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about tunings. Not tuning, which is its own thing, but different tunings for the guitar. So there are a few that are really commonly used in trad music. And the thing with tunings is they all have their strengths and their weaknesses. So it's what you choose as your main tuning, which isn't to say you can't switch around, because you can. I do it all the time. But like, if you have, your the one you use most of the time is you have basically decided that set of trade-offs is what you are willing to deal with. So standard tuning, we all know. I don't know, maybe you don't. E, A, D, G, B, E. And that's kind of like, normal guitar tuning. And the thing that is great about it is it is very, very nice for the keys of G and E minor, right? Because of where the open strings lie. It's good for A minor. It's not so hot for D, without a fair bit of wrangling. I've talked about some of the voicings I use, but the thing about the key of D in standard tuning is the lowest D on the instrument is this, which is kind of in the middle, right? It's not really, so it doesn't really provide a super low bass for anything, which then brings us to drop D tuning. So drop D is standard tuning, but with a D on the bottom. And mine is not quite in tune, sorry. It'll do. So drop D, all of a sudden, you have a glorious sounding D chord. And the nice things about drop D are the inner strings are the same, so you don't have to. If you're playing a chord that doesn't involve the low string, it's the same thing. Like C chord is the same, or A minor, or any of that stuff. That you don't have to relearn anything for that. But you do get this awesome, when you hit D. You get a very nice resonant sound for that. The thing to keep in mind with any tuning is sort of where are your octaves is one thing. Like, so here you have a D and here you have a D. Which means those are the same note, which means they, all the way up the neck, if you play the same fret, they're going to be the same. So there it is. So if anytime you're trying to figure out a chord, if you know what's happening here, like say you play a D chord, and you know that this, D over F sharp, right? Well, you could also play, that's going to work there. You can do both of them. So here's three different voicings, right? Here's that, here's that, here's that. Right? So it gives you, just in terms of ways to approach it, you can kind of remember that these two are going to be the same no matter what you do. So then right. So obviously it does the key of D extraordinarily well. E minor is a little harder because then you've lost now your lowest. Well, you have a low E, but it kind of, if you want to hear that note, it sort of ties your hand up, doesn't it? Like you're kind of stuck down here. Whereas if you're in standard, that's your open string. Which is better? It doesn't matter, How much do you play in D versus E minor? It's just a matter of which one you can learn better. Now, so then that takes us to DADGAD, which is D-A-D-G A-D. Now DADGAD, it's hard not to play in D. You've got D, A, D, G, A, D. So 5 out of the 6 strings are D notes. If in your main, like you put one finger down and you're playing a D chord. So advantages of DADGAD. Everything sounds beautiful in DADGAD. Disadvantages of DADGAD, it's really hard to get out of D. So now, not impossible, certainly. You can do anything in any tuning. But when you're approaching it, the E minor problem that we had in drop D is compounded by the fact that, like, now you've got the whole, if you do this, you still have, which sounds kind of awesome, but is not really like a strong E minor voicing. You can do bar chords, I guess, but that's physically a little annoying and difficult. You can use a capo, which I've talked about this on the bouzouki a bit. So that sounds great for E minor, right? What if I have to change keys? Well, in my case, I'm going to be going and unscrewing a capo. If you're good, if you can switch capos quickly, then that's fine. There are some people who basically learn 3 chords, the truth, and a capo with DADGAD, and just basically always play out of a D shape, which works. It's a little limiting maybe, but in some ways. But if it sounds good, then it's fine. The things, if you want to explore the tuning more deeply, again, now with your octaves, you've got a D and a D and a D, right? First string, fourth string, and then you got 2 A's. You got the second and fifth strings. So you got a lot of octaves going. So again, with that same theory, if I play, I'll stick my finger down here with the D. If I play an F sharp there, I could also play an F sharp there, or I could play an F sharp here. All the same note, but very different effects. Right, that was all just F sharp to G, F sharp, E, D, but on different strings. So DADGAD is an awful lot of fun. I love using DADGAD. It's not my main tuning because I don't know it as well. The people for whom it is their main tuning, they know it really well. So now I want to do one more tuning, and that is open G. So that's D, G. And then the G, and then the B, the second string goes back up to B, and then D on top. So open G is one that, of these, it's the one that I'm sort of the least conversant in, but it's an awesome sound because of this low G string. The thing for me that is trickiest about it is kind of reconfiguring your thinking so that you don't try to play a D chord. You don't think that this is still an A string. You know what I mean? So I mean, you could play here's D, but then you have that G to contend with. So I mean, if you wanted to play now your D chord looks like this. But one way to think of it is, if you think about standard tuning, and you think about playing an A, and you can do these triad shapes we talked about in a different video, I think. You can do the same thing with your hand going down a step, and just. So, who uses that tuning? This tuning, was, I mean, some of the Paul Brady stuff, Paul Brady and Andy Irvine, they were definitely using a bit of open G here and there. And it's a cool tuning. It gets a sound like nothing else does. Just the way that it, like the way the instrument rings. So, that would be one that again, it's not my main tuning. I play in it occasionally, and I wouldn't be like messing around. That'd be for like something that I know what I'm doing. I've got like a part that I play, and then I get back out of that tuning as soon as I can. But so with any tuning, the things to do, like try to find a few signposts. Like, okay, here's some D's, here's some G's. That's helpful, right? You know that if you're gonna play in, I don't know, say a G chord, you probably could just use some open strings, but if you didn't want the third, then you'd have to do that. Figuring out sort of where those signposts are. Don't necessarily try to relate it to, well, I don't know about that. You can try to relate it to another tuning and be like, oh, well, it's just like that, but I need to switch this. If that's helpful, then do that. If it's not helpful, then don't do that. But with any of them, just messing around with it is going to, unlock its secrets. So I hope that you, and there are really an infinite number of tunings, but those four are the ones that I would be most familiar with. So if you have some other favorites, by all means, work away. There's a lot of great stuff you can do, and there's a lot of weird options out there. That's for sure. But anyway, I hope this was vaguely helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know, and take care.